So, as you all know, I am a massive, massive advocate for people getting involved in politics because there is a big problem, not only, I'd say, not only that affects this country, but definitely others. And other people of other countries will probably agree with me or disagree with me to certain effects. But the biggest problem I find, especially in the UK, is that people seem to think that we only live in a democracy pretty much once every 4 to 5 years. And that is completely the wrong way to think about it. Because we live in a democracy 365 days every year. That is how you must approach politics. And I know politics to a lot of people is really, really boring. I am probably one of the few bizarre people out there who finds politics a bizarre fascination that I have. And I know that I am definitely in the minority when it comes to thinking and talking and wanting to talk about politics openly. But there you go. And getting out and being involved starts at home. It starts in your local council. It starts in your town, city, and village. You know, it's not just the national stage, it's your local stage as well that is just as important. And we've seen recently in my own hometown of Barnsley, the fact that there has been a 2-year consultation period of how shall we say, a particular piece of land was going to be used and transformed. And yet, local residents claim that they were not consulted. But Barnsley Council has put out flyers, ideas. It has had events on for the past 2 years that these people were invited to have public open consultation, and virtually no one turned up. And yet just a few weeks ago, we had a quote, big turnout. I think it was about 40 people for a protest. So that's a reasonable sized protest for a town like Barnsley, I suppose. And they all complained that, oh, they hadn't been told, they hadn't been consulted. Well, I'm sorry. No, you had been, because there are literally examples in the Barnsley Chronicle of people of literally adverts saying there is going to be this consultation. We want people there. They did articles about it, you name it. And that's just one example, as well as the others that I mentioned just earlier. But anyway, get out and vote. That is what we're talking about today, because I have a very, very somewhat worrying example, and I hope that this isn't the norm. But I do worry about this because I think this is something that we might have to potentially worry about. So what are we looking at here? I'll just make the screen bigger so you can see it better. So these are the local results of the last local election in Humberston and Hamilton for essentially the Leicester City Council. And all these down the side that you can see here are the different wards. But we're particularly paying attention to Humberston and Hamilton. And as you can see here, all 3 of the seats in Humberston and Hamilton were won very clearly by the Labour Party. Starting at the top candidate here, 195 votes, quite a clear win. Next Labour candidate, 295 votes. Again, another very clear win. The next Labour candidate, 1,889 votes. Again, another very clear win. And the closest anyone came was this Conservative candidate here with 1,128. That is literally the closest anyone came. And of course, you can see up here as well that the turnout for this will be generous, and we'll call it 30%, even though it's technically less than 30%. You know, it's roughly 30%. That is tiny. So only about 30% of people in Humberston and Hamilton in Leicester actually turned out to vote in the last local elections that went out. Less than 30%. That is tiny. And remember, having small turnout is quite a bad thing, because it only takes a very small yet motivated party to start canvassing their grassroots and get them out to vote. And I want to pay very, very close attention to that Conservative candidate that got 1,128 votes. Because guess what? There was a by-election in Humberston and Hamilton. Let me to it. And this was what the by-election results were. Do you notice who won? It was the Conservative Party candidate with 1,062 votes. Very, very close to his original vote. Now, you may be thinking, hang on, why didn't the Labour win this? You know, the Labour candidates were close to 2,000 votes. Well, here's our guy here. 790. Definitely the most out of, again, the other parties. Like I say, the next highest for them was the Liberal Democrats at 262. But what was the turnout? 16%. 16% turnout. When you would normally, now, of course, this is, of course, a ward by-election. And, of course, as you saw, again, these local elections had about 30% turnout. But as you can see here, if you have a very motivated group of people, and let's face it, the Conservative Party primarily focus on older people who we know are more likely to vote. Then they get out and vote. And he's almost, the Conservative candidate, almost to a T, exactly the same amount of votes he got in the last May election. And you know what was sad about this? This is actually the first time that, again, this seat has gone to someone who was not a member of the Labour Party. It's gone to a Conservative Party candidate. So it is incredibly worrying that once again this has happened. And I worry that the next election, the grassroots Labour movement does not turn out the Labour Party vote, because that is something that we have to focus on going into the next general election. We have to look forward to getting people and getting them out to vote. Because remember, all those Labour candidates that we saw were close to or past over 2,000 votes. And that Labour and the Conservative candidate got almost exactly the same amount of votes in a turnout that was only about 16%. That is worrying and something that we need to keep an eye on, regardless going forward. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page. And of course, there's a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.